So here's a project I'm very excited about. It's a cherry burl blank. Got it from my uncle, and this is definitely going to turn out really cool. You can just see the bird's eye, the crazy nature of that grain. This is going to be really cool. I've got a variable speed system hooked up to this lathe. I harvested it from an old treadmill, and it's been working just phenomenal. I'm very happy with it. It's really nice to be able to control that speed. And since this is burl wood, it's kind of fragile. It's not quite as stable as your normal wood since the grain's going in some different directions. So we want to take it at a higher RPM with smaller passes. You don't want to take too much material. This is definitely a hard wood. I can really feel it. It's taken some time to get down, but this grain pattern is super cool. I'm very happy with it. With this burl, once I start getting closer in, you really got to take it slow because this is super easy to tear out. You can see this right here. That's going to be a tricky part. There is a little bit of tear out there. I'm probably going to leave more room than I normally do for sanding, so that tear out will be minimal. It's this spot here in the middle that I really am going slow on. You got to be careful. Mainly it's this little tear out right there and this little chip right there. You really got to take it slow or else it's just going to keep chipping out. But this is, it's already looking really nice. The grain is super cool. This is definitely a very challenging blank to turn. You can see tear out is very easy on the burl. Got a little bit right there, but just taking it slow. Of course, there's the little pits there, but that's part of the character of the wood. But other than that, I've just got a little bit of a... That's sort of part of the burl itself there. A lot of this will really look nice. Once I put that CA finish on here, it'll be real smooth, and it'll look great. This process is very slow going. Not to mention it's a very hard wood, especially when it's that burl. But it's also, you just got to take these light passes. If I eat in there, it'll really start tearing out the wood and it would actually probably crack my blank. So you really got to take it slow. Is freshly sharpened and it is really doing its job nicely. It's cutting it very nicely. The skew can be bad if it's not sharp. If it's dull, it's really going to tear stuff out. But when it's sharp, it removes material very well. And if you look where I had some of that tear out before, that's just about all gone. I had right there was a little bit. I feel a little bit. That's just about all gone. And all this is looking great. Yeah, wow, this is such a This sharp skew actually leaves a very smooth finish on the wood. That's very impressive. It's also not giving any more tear out in the wood. I actually really like using the skew, getting to this point where I really need to be careful. I can just take the skew and lightly start really cutting away that material. It's actually pretty surprising the smooth finish that the skew leaves. You can actually see a reflection on the wood like I've actually started to sand it. It's definitely slow going, but it's definitely going. This skew is doing a very good job. I don't have any more tear out. The only holes I have are the ones in the wood, like the bird's eye, which is completely fine. That's actually really cool. I'd say there's probably about an 1/8 inch of material in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and start sanding, get that to its final shape. I really don't want to push it. Now we'll take out our tool rest so we can start the sanding process. Alright, now it's just about down to the final shape of the bushings. Got the sandpaper and got it about as close as I can with the 120, or maybe that was 180. Now I'm going to go with some 400 and take it right down to the profile. Alright, done with the 400, and wow, this is looking super cool. I'm very happy with the grain pattern. I don't know what that is, but it's so cool. It's almost like a beehive, hexagon. It's cool. Now we'll go with 600. Now that grain pattern's really starting to pop, I'm gonna go up to 800, and if I feel like it, I'm gonna go to 1200. And Alright, that's an 800 grit finish. Now you could stop there, but it really doesn't take much time to put a 1200 grit finish on, and I think who needs to put a finish on their pens when it already has a gloss finish on it? Wow, yeah, this looks amazing with the 1500. I actually went up to 1500 grit, and that's just phenomenal. Now you want to check it in the light, get an angle at it, and make sure there's no scratches in the finish. You can look at what you're looking for is deeper scratches, like a 120 finish, like a 120 scratch. And if you do see one of those, you're gonna have to go back to 400 or back to 120 to get that scratch out, and then work your way back up the grits. Now with a damp rag, I'm gonna wipe it over the surface, and this will take some of that sawdust out of the pits. Not to mention, you get a glimpse of what that finish is gonna look like. This just cleans the sawdust off. You can sort of see what I'm getting. It's a little tricky though. I don't want to let the water sit on here for too long, so once I wipe it on, I'm going to take a dry part of the rag and wipe that off. And now I'll dry it up with the heat gun. Now we'll put on a CA glue finish. This is a thin viscosity. I like to start with a thin coat, and then I will go and use this stuff, which is thick. I watched a YouTube video, and they were using a bag. You get a bunch of these bags whenever you make the pen kits. They probably have like 3 or 5 of these in every pen kit that you use. So just use the bag, and then what we'll do is we'll apply it other way around, and then I'll use the bag to spread it around. There's our thin coat of CA. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay on some thick coats. Now it's time for the second coat. Now I've learned that it's very important to do a second coat, maybe even a third coat. Try to get them as thick as you can. Because I've learned if you do a thin coat or just one thick coat, that's not going to be enough. When you start sanding it, you want to get all the shiny spots, all the bumps and imperfections out. And by the time you do that, you'll sand through the finish back down to the wood, and you'll have to reapply the finish, and it'll end up taking more time in the long run. I want to make sure this finish is hard whenever I start sanding it, so I'm going to take it off the mandrel and bring it inside. It's a little chilly out where we are now. Let that cure. Now we can go ahead and put this back on the lathe. We'll put our tailstock back in. I'll start sanding with a 600 grit finish. This is going to be sort of a time-consuming process, but it's all worth it in the end. I just got this blank all polished up. Tell you what, that took a lot of time to get that finish on there, but it's definitely worth this finished product. It just looks great. Now we'll take off the bushings. And it's just as simple as tapping there and then they break loose. What I found is you want to spin it a little bit because there's a little bit of CA glue there. The other one fell out, but I'm just going to spin it and that'll grind it flat. Now with the sander, of course not turning it on, I'm just cleaning up the edges a little bit as well. Now I'll just clean up the ends a little bit more with some 400 grit. Now I'm going to use the executive style pen kit for this blank, and now I got to figure out which end I want things on and what orientation. I kind of want those marks there to be more prominent in the front, so I'm going to put the clip more in the back. Now in the vise, I'll press these pieces together. Now I'll put the refill in, and I'll also put in the twist mechanism. Now the end cap. Alright, so here's the finished product. There is one small crack whenever I pressed it together, but this is what the cherry burl looks like. I am very happy with how it looks. I've actually got a cherry burl right here. This is one that we cut down maybe a month ago. It needs a little while longer to dry, but once this dries, I can turn it into something like this.